So NVR matrices, this one is very technique heavy. I think it's quite easy to understand and to sort of know how to do these, but to be able to do these fast enough, do well in a mock exam is quite difficult, especially mini mock 3, I'm pretty sure, is one we had matrices on, and we had very low scores on the NVR, mainly because you ran out of time. So I'm going to show you exactly how you should be doing these question types to make sure that you can do them quickly and get the right answer. They should be guaranteed marks, really, if you know how to do them. So if we read through this, in matrices questions you are given a grid of either 4 or 9 squares. You can see here, here's a 4 square grid, here's a 9 square grid. In each type you have to develop a common rule of how the shape changes throughout the grid, right? Matrices build on NVR techniques, for example the ones that you learn in analogy or sequences. It is significant to review these sections before tackling NVR matrices. If you're confident with, for example, what could be coming up, like I always say, the mnemonic that we've got, never sneak snacks into a crowded picnic, to a crowded picnic, not into. Let me just show that, just to give some context on what I'm talking about. Here is the mnemonic that we use. Basically, if you're struggling on figuring out what the rule is, it could be any of these. If you're completely lost, don't worry, I'm just going to explain all of this slowly. So with a matrices questions, or a matrix question, what you're going to have is a grid. You're going to have shapes in the grid, so there'll be shape 1, shape 2, shape 3, shape 4, and what's going to be happening is it's going to give you a blank shape, so it's going to basically have nothing in the shape 4 position, and it's going to ask you to figure out what this shape 4 should be looking like. Basically, it's going to give you some answer options, and how you do that is by finding out the rule that is going on in the grid. And like you can see here are all of the different directions where a rule could be taking place. So just to make the 4x4 grid example a bit easier to understand, here is an example question that we're going to use. Like I said here, number 4 is left blank, but it's asking us to figure out which of these options will fit in it. What you can see here is a rule type that could be happening. So what could be happening is there is a rule in these two and then these two, right? So if we just look at this one, you can already see it. What is the rule between box 1 and box 2? Well, they're both triangles. This one seems to be flipped upside down and it's turned white. Let's focus on the fact that it's getting flipped upside down. What we can assume from that is this one is going to have the same concept. The pentagon here, the 5-sided shape here, is going to get flipped upside down. And if we look at the options, option A has not done that, option B and C has done that. What else happens to the pentagon after it's flipped upside down? It's also turned white, so it should be option C. That is our answer, and that is exactly how you do a matrices question. You have to find the direction that the rule is going in, then you just apply the rule like any other question. And when you get some bigger grids, like a 9 by 9 grid, over here there's loads of different directions a rule could be going. So if your shape might be changing like this in a snaking pattern, like one of these. It could be just going across or straight down, or one of these that we find really often is a diagonal option. And basically, again, this whole row is following its own rule, and then this whole row is following its own rule, this row is following its own rule. So it's a lot of different rules that you have to look at all in one go. This is why it can be quite difficult, but if you know how to spot it, it's very easy. So the first thing when you come across another question like this is figure out which direction is the rule going in. Look for something that's similar. Look for where is the similarity in this? You could say it's going across the right because it goes black, white, black, and this one also goes black, white, black. That's a good point. You could also say the rule is going down because this is all black, and this is probably going to be all white, this is going to be all black. That would work as well. I think those are the only two rules you could be using here. So after that, we've already figured out that this option has to be white, right? If you look at side to side, it goes black, white, black, black, white, black, right? So we can already cancel out option A and option C. Now we have to figure out what's actually changing apart from the color. Well, it looks like when we're going sideways, the triangle again is flipped upside down here and then flips back to the right side. So this pentagon should be flipped upside down, pretty similar to the last question, meaning we should have not option D but option B, which is the pentagon flipped upside down. And the same thing is happening on this one as well. Another example question, figure out first of all, first step 0 basically, of a matrix question is to find out which direction the rule is going in. And this one can be a bit more difficult to sort of spot. If you look at the colors, I don't really see anything with the colors. I don't see any pattern, any sort of direction like the ones I showed you above. I don't see any of those. So I'm going to look at the X's, right? So there's an X in the top left, then an X in the middle. I'm already thinking maybe the X should be on this side, but I haven't looked at the rest of it, so I do have to check first. Again, so let's go X to the right, X to the left, X in the middle, X in the middle, X to the right, X to the left. Okay, so there's definitely something going on in terms of sideways, right? All of these options, all of these parts of the grid have at least one option where the X is in the middle, one option where the X is on the left, and one option where the X is on the right. So that sort of signals to me that this one should have the X on the right, meaning it cannot be A. What else could we be looking for? Let's have a look. Well, if we actually go downwards, I can see all of these are triangles, all of these shapes are triangles. If we go downwards here, all of these are circles. Go downwards here, that means this one should be a diamond, right? So I can already cancel out D as well. See if we can find any other sort of color options here, because we've got B and C, which are both the same thing, except this is black and this is white. So we have to figure out how can we choose what color it needs to be. If we go sideways, we don't really see any rule, because this one's got 2 blacks here, this one's got 1 black. That doesn't really make sense for me. Same thing if we go down, it's got 2 blacks, 1 black. Actually, that could work. What could happen here is maybe it's meant to be 2 blacks, 1 black, 0 blacks, right? But I'll check to see if there's any other reasons. Yeah, that's probably it. That's the only one I can think of. What seems to be happening is downwards, across the columns, there's 2 blacks on this side, 1 black on this one, and then there should be no blacks on the last one. So that will give me C and E left, and there is a difference between C and E. If we look at both of the options, this one's got a bit of a longer tail than E. So now again we have to look at the grid, figure out what rule is governing the tail. So I'm looking sideways, I can see all of these have the same length tail. Looking this way, all of them have the same length tail. Same thing for this is going to be the case. So it needs to be a short one and not a long one. And we can see here C is a bit too long, meaning we should be left with the answer of E. If we just go all the way down, there we go. Option E is the correct answer. And hopefully this sort of stuff actually makes it a bit easier to visualize as well. So what you can see is happening here, right, is they're just taking one option at a time. They're removing everything else. So when I was focusing on just the X's, for example, I'm not even looking at these shapes, and that's what they've done here, right? So this is how you should sort of be visualizing the questions, where you're just ignoring everything else and just looking at the X's. and it's pretty simple, or pretty easy to find what the pattern is in this when you're just looking at the x's, because you can see it goes left, left, left. Oh, so you can see there's a diagonal pattern here as well. It goes left, straight, middle, right, and then right, left, middle, middle, right, left. But you've got this sort of pattern here as well, and I didn't even notice that one actually. Same idea here, top, middle, bottom row, and then same thing here with the shapes. But yeah, hopefully that is useful. I'm going to go through just one question because I'm running out of time here. Alright, we're going to do question 12, and you can see here a lot of these matrices in this practice sheet are different shapes and different formats, so not all of them will be 9x9 grids. You can get given any sort of format of a matrices question. This is some sort of weird triangle star thing, but it's the same concept, same idea. We have to look for what sort of similarity there is, what sort of rule there is. You can see this is a similar thing where you go up and down and across, right? There's quite definitely a rule there, because you can see the top here and the bottom here is the same. This one and this one is the same, meaning this one and this one is probably going to be the same. So let's have a look. It definitely can't be A, definitely can't be B because it's facing the wrong way. Can't be E either. These two are facing the right direction, but which one has got the right pattern on the triangle? Well, it's C, not D. I'll do one quick one more. Actually, let me see if we can find a box one. Here we go, we got a 9x9 grid here. We'll try and figure this one out. First thing, step 0, like I always say, is to figure out which direction the rule is going. I see a pattern already going diagonally down. So this line has all got hexagons, this line has all got rectangles, and then this line is definitely going to have an oval. That sort of leaves me with either B or D for the answer option. Okay. I am also seeing something different. For example, if I look diagonally this way, these two are the same. These two aren't the same actually, so I'm not going to look for that. You know, the only thing here, right, is all of these boxes, all of them have an X. They always have an X. None of them have a plus like this one. So that's just immediately going to let me cross out D and have B as the answer. And even though these are basically the same shapes here, that makes sense because the bottom right corner and the top left corner also have the same shapes. Yeah, that should be the answer to 5, sorry. Hopefully that video was useful.